Hello, dear students. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to a new lecture. In this lecture, we're going to start with a new grammar lesson, which is the past progressive tense. So here are the objectives. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to use the past progressive tense with 80% accuracy. You'll be able to identify the time expressions used in the past progressive tense, formulate sentences in the past progressive tense, change affirmative sentences in the past progressive tense into the negative and question forms, and identify and correct the grammatical mistakes in the use of the past progressive tense. Here's the table of contents. We'll be first explaining the usages for the past progressive tense, then the time expressions used in this tense, third, the form for the past progressive tense, and fourth, the affirmative, negative, and question forms. And by the end, we will have practice questions on each of these topics. So let's start with the usages. So the first question is, why do we use the past progressive tense? I use the past progressive tense to express an ongoing action, so an action that was going on, that was happening in the past. For example, when I say, John was playing in the snow. So what was John doing? John was playing. He was playing. So he was doing this action for a period of time in the past. So this action was ongoing, was still taking place in the past. Or Sarah's hands were shaking. So the hands were shaking. This is an action that was taking place, still happening in the past. So often the past simple tense sets the scene for another activity. What does that mean? So sometimes John, for example, was playing in the snow when you called him. Sometimes you would have an action that was taking place and another action that interrupts this action. And the main action that was going on or taking place would be written in the past progressive tense, while the other one would be written in the past simple tense. So John originally was playing in the snow. So this is the action that was going on in the past, which is written in the past progressive tense. And another action interrupted this, which is another person called. So this action that interrupted this, I write it in the past simple. Now let's look at the other example. Sarah's hands were shaking as she read the letter. So again, as she read the letter, her hands were shaking. So we have two things here, one in the past progressive and the other in the past simple. So to sum it up, why do we use the past progressive tense? We use it in three cases. First, to describe or express an action that was taking place at a specific point in time in the past. For example, I was working in the garden all day yesterday. So this is the action that was taking place yesterday. I was working. This is the action that was going on yesterday. So again, to describe an action that was taking place at a specific point in time in the past. Second, to describe parallel actions, which means two actions, not only one action, two actions taking place at the same time in the past. So the second usage is similar to the first. However, here we're talking about one action. Here we're talking about two actions. Both of them were taking place at the same time in the past. For example, I was listening to a loud music while I was washing the dishes. Okay? Third usage is to express an action that was taking place in the past and got interrupted by another action. For example, I was driving to work when I crashed my car. So as I said before, the one that was going on, I was driving. This is the one that's written in the past progressive. The action that interrupted it, which is crashing my car, I crashed my car, I write it in the past simple. Okay? So for the interrupted action, we would have two things. The one that was going on, which is I write in the past progressive, was driving, like was listening, was working. And the other action that interrupted this, which is the crash or the accident of the car, I write it in the past simple. Just add ed for the verb crash. Okay? So here's an exercise for you to practice what I've just explained. You're going to write 3 sentences of your own for each of the 3 usages. Write a sentence for an action that was taking place in the past, 2 actions taking place at the same time in the past, which we call them parallel actions, and an action that was taking place in the past and got interrupted by another action, which are similar to these 3 examples, but write your own sentences. Now we move on to the time expressions. By now, we already know what time expressions are. Time expressions are expressions that show me the time in which the action was taking place. So we use the time expression in the past progressive tense to express what action was going on and when, mainly. So the 3 main time expressions that I want you to learn are when, as, and while. For example, while Sally was working upstairs, I was preparing dinner. So when was I preparing dinner? While Sally was working upstairs. So I know the time in which I was preparing dinner. While Sally was working upstairs. So while is a time expression that shows me the time in which I was doing this action. Or as she was reading the book, Alice came. When did Alice come? Alice came as she was reading the book, as someone else was reading the book. So as is also a time expression that shows me when this action took place. Or I was watching TV when it started raining. So it started raining at the same time when I was watching TV. And here we have 2 parallel actions. So when shows me that these 2 actions are parallel, which means both of them were taking place at the same time going on in the past. Okay, so you see time expressions express the time in which the action was taking place. All right. Now I want you in this exercise to complete the below sentences or phrases to make full sentences using the time expressions between brackets. For example, I was taking a shower when, you can say, when the visitors knocked on the door. So knocking on the door is an action that interrupted this action that was going on. And we were using the time expression when. So write your own sentence. Second one, the police punished him because he was talking on the phone as, you can say, as he was driving his car. So parallel actions, as shows me that he was driving and talking on the phone at the same time. So this is a time expression, okay, showing me when these actions were taking place. They were taking place at the same time in the past. And third, I was talking to my classmates while, when was I talking to my classmates? While, for example, we were taking a test or while the teacher was explaining a lesson, okay? So again, these 3 are time expressions that express the time in which the action was taking place in the past. Now, what's the form, which means how do I formulate the past progressive tense? Now, it depends on the subject. If the subject is singular, which means one person, I use was, and then I write the main verb plus ing. For example, was washing the dishes. I am one person, singular subject, so I use was. I was washing the dishes when you called. However, when I have a plural subject, I use were plus the verb plus ing. Okay? For example, they is a plural pronoun referring to a plural subject. They could be 2, 3, 4, which means more than 2 people. So they, plural subject, I use were, and the verb knock plus ing becomes knocking. Okay? On the door when I walk up. Now let's practice some questions. Here you have to fill in the blanks with the correct form of the past continuous tense. For example, Alice hurt herself while she was skating. I met my neighbor while I was walking. Okay, so she and I are singular subjects, so I write was, and then skate plus ing, or walk plus ing. So I will leave the rest for you, and then you will have the answer key. So as you can see, she was skating. I was walking. She was riding. He was studying. Now they were dancing. Then I was shaving. They were baking, and he was sleeping. Okay, so singular subject was plus the verb plus ing, plural subject were plus the verb plus ing. That's how I formulate verbs in the past progressive tense to express an action that was going on in the past. Now, last but not least, the last part of our lecture is how to change the affirmative sentences into negative and question forms. So an affirmative sentence is a sentence that starts with a subject, then was or were, depending on the subject, whether it's singular or plural, then the verb, then the ing. So it's the simple form of any sentence. She was cooking all morning. She is the subject, it's singular, so was, not were, and cooking, the main verb, which is cook plus ing, and the rest of the sentence. So this is the affirmative sentence, okay, the simple sentence. Subject, was or were, plus the verb plus ing and the rest of the sentence. Now, when I want to make it a negative sentence, which means she was not cooking. So what do? I just add not, okay? Where do I add not? Between was or were and the verb. So she was cooking, I say she was not cooking. I add not between was, or if it's were, between were and the verb, which is with ing. Now, how do I ask a question? I start with verb to be. I start with was or were, depending on what I have. Then the subject, verb plus ing. So what do? I switch. In the affirmative, I have subject, verb to be in the past, then the verb and ing. In the question, I switch them. I do not say she was cooking. I say was she cooking. So I switch the subject and verb to be. And I say, was she cooking all morning? And for sure, it ends with a question mark. Or were they working all day? Okay. So again, affirmative sentence is the simple sentence case, subject, verb to be in the past, which is either was or were based on the subject, whether it's singular or plural. Singular subjects takes was, singular subjects take was, and singular and plural subjects take were. Then the verb, then ing, like she was cooking all morning. Negative means someone did not do this. So I say she was not cooking all morning. Subject was or were plus not plus verb plus ing. And in the question, I start with verb to be. So was or were plus the subject plus verb plus ing, then a question mark. Was she cooking all morning? Now here we have some practice questions. We have to turn these affirmative sentences into the negative and interrogative forms. For example, he was cooking when his friend arrived. So I say he was not cooking when his friend arrived in the negative. And in the question, I have to start with was. So I switch was and he. I say, was he cooking when his friend arrived? Okay, I will leave the rest for you to think of them. And here is the answer key. We were watching our favorite TV show when the electricity cut off. We were not watching our favorite TV show when the electricity cut off. So I just added not between were and the verb plus ing. Then in the question form, I start with verb to be. Were we watching our favorite TV show when the electricity cut off? Question mark. For example, again, he was writing an email when the phone rang. Negative, he was not writing an email when the phone rang. And interrogative, was he writing an email when the phone rang? All right. Here is another exercise. In each of the following sentences, there is one grammatical mistake. You need to circle it and correct it on the line. For example, when I phoned my friends, they play Monopoly. Now, when I phoned my friends, I interrupted something that they were doing. So I say they were playing Monopoly. Okay. Yesterday at 6, I was preparing dinner. I practiced the guitar when he came home. No, when he came, I was practicing the guitar. While John was working in his room, his friends swim in the pool. No, we have parallel actions. So while he was working, his friends were swimming. And here is the answer key. Okay. By now, our lecture comes to an end. I hope that everything was clear. If you have any question, do not hesitate to send me an email at amahsen@ischoolia@gmail.com and follow me at Learn with Maha on Instagram. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.